the first thing Luna felt was pain raw. Merciless pain that crawled under her skin and settled deep into her bones like it had always belonged there. Like suffering was the only thing her body remembered how to hold onto. Her vision blurred in and out. The ceiling above her cracked and stained, spinning slowly as if the world itself had grown tired of watching her endure this endless nightmare. She tried to move, but her arms felt heavy, her fingers trembling weakly against the cold marble floor. Slick with something warm, something she didn't need to see to recognize. Blood, her blood again. A bitter laugh almost escaped her lips, but even that required more strength than she had left. Footsteps echoed in the distance, slow and deliberate, the kind that carried no urgency because the person walking knew there was no need to hurry, because the victim wasn't going anywhere. Not this time, not ever again. Still alive, a man's voice scoffed, dripping with annoyance rather than concern. It was him. Of course it was him, the man she had been sold to, the man she had once called husband, the man who had turned her life into a living hell. Daniel. Luna's chest tightened, not with fear, but with something far more corrosive, regret. Regret that burned hotter than any bruise on her skin, sharper than any wound carved into her flesh. She had known deep down. She had always known, from the moment her parents smiled too sweetly, from the moment her younger sister clung to her arm with fake tears in her eyes, from the moment they told her it was for the family. She had known this marriage was nothing more than a transaction, and she was the price. You should have just died already, Daniel muttered, his shadow looming over her as he crouched down, gripping her chin roughly and forcing her to look at him. His eyes held no warmth, no humanity, only irritation, as if she were nothing more than a broken object that refused to be thrown away properly. Luna stared at him through half-lidded eyes, her lips trembling as she tried to speak, but no sound came out, only a faint, broken breath. Her throat was dry, her voice stolen by years of silence, by years of swallowing every scream, every ounce of dignity she once had. She wanted to ask why he hated her so much, why he never once saw her as human. But even as the thought crossed her mind, she knew the answer didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered anymore, because she was dying finally. A soft chuckle echoed from the door, light and almost playful, so out of place in a room filled with blood and despair. Luna's heart skipped a beat, not from hope, but from recognition. That voice, she knew it all too well. Brother-in-law, you're being too rough again, the woman said, stepping into the room with slow, graceful movements, her heels clicking softly against the floor. She looked flawless, untouched by the chaos around her, her long brown hair cascading over her shoulders, her lips curved into a gentle smile that could fool anyone who didn't know her true nature. But Luna did. She knew better than anyone. Myra, Luna finally managed to whisper, her voice barely audible, cracking under the weight of betrayal that had never once faded. Even after all this time, her younger sister, the one who had cried the loudest when Luna was forced into this marriage, the one who had promised she would always be there, the one who had been sleeping with her husband behind her back from the very beginning. Myra tilted her head slightly, her expression softening as she walked closer, kneeling beside Luna with a sigh that sounded almost disappointed. You're still holding on, she murmured, reaching out to brush a strand of hair away from Luna's face, her touch eerily gentle. You've always been so stubborn, sis. Luna's eyes filled with tears, not from the pain, but from the sheer absurdity of it all. Even now, even in this moment, Myra was still pretending, still acting like the innocent, caring sister she had never truly been. Why? Luna forced the word out, her gaze locking onto Myra's, searching desperately for something, anything, that resembled the girl she once loved. Why did you do this to me? For a brief moment, there was silence. Then Myra smiled, not the soft, innocent smile she showed the world, but something colder, sharper, something real. Because you were in the way, she said simply, her voice devoid of emotion, as if she were stating an obvious fact. Luna's breath hitched, her heart clenching painfully in her chest. You had everything, Myra continued, her tone light, almost casual. The attention, the expectations, the future. Even when you tried to act small, people still looked at you first. It was exhausting. She leaned closer, her eyes glinting with something dark and twisted. So I took it, piece by piece, your place in the family, your reputation, and finally your husband. Daniel let out a low chuckle, clearly amused by the confession, as if it were nothing more than a joke shared between lovers. You should thank her actually, he added, standing up and crossing his arms. If it weren't for Myra, I wouldn't have agreed to marry you in the first place. But the deal was good, and your family was desperate. So here we are. Luna felt something inside her shatter completely, the last fragile thread of hope snapping under the weight of the truth. All this time it had all been planned, every tear, every lie, every moment of kindness, nothing more than a performance. She wasn't just a victim of circumstance. She was a pawn, a sacrifice, a tool they had all used and discarded without a second thought. Her fingers curled weakly against the floor, her nails scraping softly against the marble as a tear slipped down her cheek. Not for them, not for the pain, but for herself, for the girl she used to be, the one who believed in family, the one who thought love could be earned through sacrifice. How pathetic, how utterly pathetic she had been. It's time, Daniel said flatly, glancing at his watch as if he had somewhere more important to be. I'm tired of this. Luna didn't react when he reached for her, didn't struggle when he shoved her back against the floor, his hand pressing down on her throat with enough force to make breathing impossible. She simply stared up at the ceiling again, her vision growing darker with each passing second, her body finally giving in after years of resistance. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear Myra humming softly, as if this were nothing more than a routine chore, as if ending a life was as insignificant as changing clothes. Luna's lips parted slightly, a final breath escaping as her thoughts began to fade, slipping through her grasp like sand. Was this really the end? Was this all her life amounted to? No. No, if there was anything left, anything at all, she refused to let it end like this. A flicker of something ignited deep within her, weak but stubborn, like a dying flame refusing to be extinguished. Regret turned into anger, anger twisted into hatred, and hatred hardened into a vow. If there was a next life, if fate dared to give her another chance, she would never live like this again. She would never trust blindly again, and she would never ever let them get away with this. Her fingers twitched one last time, her vision fading completely as darkness swallowed her whole. Her final thought echoing silently in the void. If I come back, I'll destroy all of you. And then silence. The sound of her own heartbeat dragged Luna back from the void, slow at first, then louder, sharper, echoing in her ears like a drum refusing to let her rest. Pain was gone, the suffocating weight on her throat had vanished. The cold marble floor was no longer beneath her. Instead, something soft brushed against her skin, warm, clean, wrong. Her lashes fluttered, and when she opened her eyes, the world was no longer dark. Sunlight poured through a large window, spilling across polished wooden floors, illuminating a room that felt painfully familiar. Luna froze. Her breathing hitched. No, this wasn't possible. Her gaze snapped toward the mirror across the room, and for a moment, she didn't move, couldn't move, as if stepping closer would shatter whatever fragile illusion this was. But then slowly, trembling, she pushed herself up and staggered toward it. The reflection staring back at her was not the broken woman drenched in blood. There were no bruises, no hollow eyes, no lifeless expression carved by years of suffering. Instead, she saw a younger version of herself, her hair smooth and untouched, her skin unmarked, her eyes still carrying a faint trace of innocence that she had long since lost. Luna's hand shot up, fingers pressing against her cheek as if she needed to confirm it was real, warm, alive. Her breath came out in a shaky whisper. This is, her mind raced, piecing together fragments of memory, aligning them with the impossible reality in front of her. The room, the dress laid neatly on the bed, the documents on the table. Today was the day everything began, the day her life had been sold. A sudden knock at the door shattered the silence. Luna, are you awake? Her mother's voice came from the other side, gentle, almost caring, so painfully fake it made Luna's stomach twist. Hurry up. We don't want to keep them waiting. Luna's eyes darkened instantly, the fragile confusion replaced by something colder, sharper. Clarity. So it was real. She wasn't dreaming. She wasn't dead. She had come back to the very moment where her fate had been sealed in her previous life. Her lips slowly curved into a faint smile, not one of joy, but something far more dangerous. I'm awake, she replied, her voice steady, controlled. The words felt unfamiliar on her tongue, strong, not the weak, trembling whisper she remembered. She turned away from the mirror, her gaze landing on the documents spread across the table. The marriage agreement, the contract that had reduced her to nothing more than an object to be traded. Slowly, she walked over, picking it up, her eyes scanning every line. In her past life, she hadn't even read it. She had signed it with tears in her eyes, believing her sacrifice would save her family, believing they loved her. What a joke. A soft laugh escaped her lips, quiet but filled with self-mockery. This time things would be different. The door opened without waiting for her response, and her mother stepped inside, followed closely by Myra. The sight of them together standing there as if nothing had ever happened sent a wave of cold fury through Luna's veins. But her expression didn't change, not even slightly. Myra rushed forward first, her eyes already glistening with practiced tears. Sis, I'm so sorry, she said, grabbing Luna's hands. If there was any other way, I wouldn't let you do this. Luna looked down at their joined hands, her gaze lingering for a moment before slowly lifting to meet Myra's eyes. The same performance, the same lines, the same disgusting lie. In her past life, this was where she broke, where she reassured Myra, where she accepted her fate. But now she knew better. She gently pulled her hands away. Then don't let me, Luna said calmly. The room fell silent. Myra blinked, clearly caught off guard, while their mother's expression stiffened. "What do you mean?" her mother asked, her voice losing its softness. Luna tilted her head slightly, her lips curving into a faint smile. "You said there's no other way," she repeated, "but I'm saying I won't do it." The words landed like a bomb. Myra's face paled instantly. "Sis, stop joking," she said quickly, her voice trembling not with sadness, but with panic. "This isn't something you can refuse. The deal is already, then cancel it." Luna cut her off, her tone still light, almost indifferent, as if they were discussing something trivial. Her mother's patience snapped. "Do you have any idea what you're saying?" she demanded, stepping forward. "If you don't marry him, our entire family will be ruined. This is your responsibility." Responsibility. The same word they had used to chain her down in her previous life. Luna's eyes flickered with something cold. "My responsibility," she echoed softly. Then she laughed this time. It wasn't quiet. It wasn't restrained. It was sharp, almost mocking, slicing through the tension in the room. Both Myra and their mother stared at her in shock, as if they were looking at a stranger. And in a way they were. "Since when?" Luna continued, her voice dropping slightly. "Did selling your own daughter become her responsibility?" Silence heavy, suffocating. Her mother's face turned pale, then red with anger. "Watch your mouth," she snapped. "Everything we've done is for this family." "No," Luna replied instantly, her gaze locking onto hers without a hint of fear. "Everything you've done is for yourselves." Myra quickly stepped in, her voice soft and pleading. "Please don't say things like that. Mom is already under so much pressure. If you refuse now, what will happen to us?" Luna looked at her for a long moment, her expression unreadable, then slowly she smiled. "You'll survive," she said simply. "You always do." Myra's heart skipped a beat, an inexplicable chill running down her spine under Luna's gaze. Something was wrong. This wasn't the sister she knew. Before she could react, Luna turned away, picking up the contract again. "I'm not signing this," she said, her tone final. "Find someone else." Her mother's hands trembled with rage. "If you walk out of this, don't ever call yourself part of this family again." Luna paused at the door, her hand resting lightly on the handle. For a brief moment, the old pain flickered in her chest, the remnants of a bond she once cherished. But it didn't last. It couldn't. Not after everything. She opened the door without looking back. "That's fine," she said, "because from today on I don't have a family." And with that, she stepped out. The moment she crossed the threshold, the air felt different, lighter, freer, as if invisible chains had finally been broken. But she knew better than to let her guard down. This was only the beginning. In her previous life, she had been dragged into hell by force. This time she would walk a different path. A better one, a stronger one where she held the power. She walked down the grand staircase of the mansion, ignoring the servants' surprised glances, her mind already racing ahead, calculating, planning. She couldn't just refuse the marriage. That alone wasn't enough. Her family would find another way to force her. Another man, another deal, another cage. No, if she wanted to truly escape, she needed something more. Someone more powerful, someone they wouldn't dare touch. As she stepped outside, the bright sunlight hit her face, and she narrowed her eyes slightly, scanning the driveway. And then she saw it, a black car, sleek and imposing, parked just beyond the gates. It hadn't been there before, not in her previous life. The door opened slowly, and a man stepped out, tall, composed. His presence alone seemed to shift the atmosphere around him, as if the world instinctively made space. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, his expression calm, almost indifferent, but his eyes sharp, observant, landed directly on her the moment she appeared. Luna felt her breath catch for a fraction of a second. She didn't know him, at least she shouldn't, but something about him felt different, dangerous, powerful. Not like Daniel, not like anyone she had ever met. The man closed the car door behind him, his gaze never leaving hers as he took a step forward. "Miss Luna," he said, his voice low and steady, carrying an authority that was impossible to ignore. "It seems you've made a rather unexpected decision." Luna's heart skipped a beat. He knew her name. Her eyes narrowed slightly, her instincts sharpening instantly. This man was not here by coincidence. And for the first time since her rebirth, Luna smiled, not out of politeness, not out of habit, but out of pure, calculated interest, because deep down she could feel it. This encounter would change everything. Luna didn't step back. She didn't flinch under his gaze, even though everything about the man standing in front of her radiated control, the kind of quiet, absolute dominance that didn't need to be announced to be felt. Instead, she tilted her chin slightly, meeting his eyes head-on, as if she had been waiting for this exact moment. "You seem to know a lot about my decisions," she said calmly, her voice steady, betraying none of the storm raging beneath the surface. The man's lips curved ever so slightly, not quite a smile, but something close enough to suggest amusement. "I make it a habit to be informed," he replied, "especially when it involves opportunities." Luna's eyes flickered. Opportunities. So that was how he saw this. Not a coincidence, not an accident, but something calculated, good. That made things easier. Then you must also know, she continued, her tone sharpening just a fraction, that I just refused a marriage worth a fortune to my family. The man took another step closer, stopping just within a distance that felt deliberate, close enough to command attention, far enough to remain untouchable. Yes, he said simply, which raises the question why. Luna studied him carefully now, her mind moving quickly, analyzing every detail, the precision in his posture, the restraint in his expression, the way even the air around him seemed to carry weight. This was not a man who acted on impulse. This was someone who calculated outcomes long before others even realized there was a game being played. Exactly the kind of person she needed. Exactly the kind of person she could not afford to misjudge. Because I don't intend to be sold twice, she answered, her gaze unwavering. There was a brief pause, then, for the first time, something shifted in his eyes, not surprise, but interest, genuine interest. Twice he repeated, his voice lower now, as if testing the word. Luna didn't elaborate. She couldn't, not without revealing too much, but she didn't need to, not yet. Instead, she took a step forward, closing the distance between them by just enough to signal something subtle but intentional: confidence. Control. A negotiation. You said you're interested in opportunities, she said. So let's not waste time. The corners of his lips lifted slightly again. That same faint, unreadable expression. Go on. Luna took a breath, not to steady herself, but to anchor her thoughts. This was the moment, the turning point. In her previous life, this man had never appeared, which meant one thing: this was a variable, a chance, or a risk, maybe both. But she had already died once. There was nothing left to fear. Marry me, she said. Silence fell instantly, heavy and absolute. Even the distant sounds of the city seemed to fade, as if the world itself had paused to hear her words. The man didn't react immediately. He simply looked at her, his gaze deepening, assessing, dissecting every layer of her statement, as if searching for the flaw hidden beneath it. That's a rather bold proposal, he said after a moment, his tone calm but edged with something sharper now. Considering we've just met. Luna didn't look away. Have we? She countered softly. A flicker, just a flicker, of something unreadable passed through his eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. Explain, he said. She didn't, not fully. Instead, she reached into her bag, pulling out the marriage contract her family had prepared, and held it out to him. My family needs a deal, she said. A powerful one, someone they can't refuse, someone they can't control. He glanced at the document, but didn't take it. And you think that someone is me? I know it is. Luna replied without hesitation. That earned her another pause. Longer this time. The man finally reached out, taking the contract from her hands, his fingers brushing against hers for the briefest moment. Cool, steady grounding. He skimmed the pages quickly, his expression unchanged, but Luna could tell he had already processed every detail. This arrangement benefits your family, he said. Not me. Luna smiled slightly. That's where you're wrong. She stepped closer again, her voice lowering just enough that only he could hear. If I marry into your world, I bring you something far more valuable than a business deal. His gaze sharpened. And what would that be? Luna met his eyes, her own filled with a quiet, dangerous certainty. Loyalty, she said. The kind you can't buy, the kind that doesn't break. For the first time, the silence between them felt different, not tense, not uncertain, but charged, as if something invisible had just shifted into place. He studied her for a long moment, longer than before, as if weighing not just her words, but her existence itself, her composure, her defiance, the way she stood in front of him without fear despite having nothing to back her up but sheer will. You're asking for protection, he said finally. No. Luna corrected calmly. I'm offering a partnership. That did it. Something in his expression changed, not dramatically, not obviously, but enough. Enough for her to know she had his attention, fully, completely. He folded the contract once neatly, before handing it back to her. You're either very brave, he said, or very foolish. Luna took the document, her fingers steady. I've already been foolish once, she replied. I don't intend to repeat that mistake. Another pause. Then he smiled, this time. It was unmistakable, not warm, not kind, but real. Adrian Vale, he said, extending his hand. If we're going to discuss marriage, you should at least know my name. Luna looked at his hand for a brief moment before placing hers in it, her grip firm despite the slight tremor in her pulse. Luna Carter, she replied. His grip tightened slightly, not enough to hurt, but enough to assert something unspoken, a contract. Not on paper, but between them. Tell me, Miss Carter, Adrian said, his voice dropping just a fraction, his gaze locking onto hers with a new intensity. If I agree to this, what exactly do you plan to do with the power you're asking for? Luna didn't hesitate, not even for a second. Her lips curved into a slow, deliberate smile. her eyes darkening with something that hadn't existed in her past life, something ruthless, something unbreakable, everything she said, and then softer. But far more dangerous, I'm going to destroy them. The wind shifted slightly, carrying her words into the space between them, sealing them like a promise that could never be taken back. Adrian held her gaze, unmoving, unreadable. And then he laughed low, quiet, but unmistakably amused. Good, he said. Because I don't invest in anything that doesn't promise a return. Luna's heart steadied, something cold and certain settling deep within her chest. This was it, the moment her life diverged completely from the path that had once led to her death. Then we have a deal, she said. Adrian didn't release her hand immediately. Instead, he leaned in slightly, just enough for his next words to feel like a secret meant only for her. Be careful what you ask for, Mrs. Vale. He murmured, once you step into my world, there's no turning back. Luna met his gaze without hesitation, her smile unwavering. That's exactly what I want, and just like that, the deal was sealed, not with signatures, not with witnesses, but with something far more dangerous, mutual understanding. As Adrian released her hand and turned toward his car, already issuing quiet instructions to the driver, Luna stood there for a moment, the contract still in her grasp, her pulse finally catching up to everything that had just happened. She had done it. She had changed the future completely. But as the car door opened and Adrian glanced back at her one last time, his expression unreadable once more, Luna couldn't shake the feeling that she hadn't just escaped one cage, she had willingly stepped into another. The only difference this time was that she held the key. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, Luna Carter no longer existed, not in the way the world had known her. The girl who had been cornered, traded, and discarded within the walls of her own home was gone, left behind somewhere between a signed contract and a single, irreversible decision. In her place stood someone new, someone the world had yet to understand. The black car cut smoothly through the city, its tinted windows shielding her from prying eyes as the skyline transformed into something brighter, colder, more unforgiving. Luna sat in silence beside Adrian Vale, her hands resting calmly in her lap, her posture flawless, her expression composed, but her mind was anything but still. Every passing second felt like a step deeper into unfamiliar territory. She had made her choice. She had entered his world. Now she had to survive it. You're quiet, Adrian said suddenly, his voice low but clear enough to break through her thoughts without effort. Luna didn't turn to him immediately. Instead, she watched the city lights flicker past the window, her reflection staring back at her, sharp, controlled, unrecognizable even to herself. I'm thinking, she replied simply. About, he asked. She turned her head then, meeting his gaze directly. About how quickly everything changes, she said. Adrian studied her for a brief moment, his expression unreadable as always, before leaning back slightly in his seat. That depends, he said. Some people never change at all. Luna's lips curved faintly. Then they don't survive. That earned her a flicker of something, approval perhaps, or amusement. It was hard to tell. The car slowed to a stop moments later, the soft hum of the engine fading as the driver stepped out to open the door. Luna's gaze shifted forward, and for the first time since leaving her old life behind, she felt something close to anticipation. Before them stood a grand estate, its architecture sharp and modern, glass and steel reflecting the last traces of sunlight like a silent declaration of power. This wasn't just wealth. This was influence, control, a kingdom built not on emotion, but on precision. Welcome home, Adrian said, stepping out of the car without waiting for her response. Luna followed, her heels touching the ground with quiet confidence as she took in her surroundings. Everything here was deliberate, every detail carefully chosen. Nothing was out of place, just like the man who owned it. The doors opened before they even reached them, staff already waiting, their movements synchronized, their expressions neutral. They bowed slightly as Adrian passed, their eyes lowering respectfully. But when Luna stepped beside him, something shifted, subtle, almost imperceptible: curiosity, surprise, speculation. She could feel it without needing to look. Of course they were surprised. Adrian Vale was not a man who brought strangers home, and certainly not women. But Luna didn't react. She didn't hesitate. She walked forward as if she had always belonged here, her steps steady, her gaze forward, her presence undeniable. If they were going to watch, then she would give them something worth watching. The interior of the estate was even more imposing: high ceilings, clean lines, an atmosphere that felt less like a home and more like a fortress disguised as elegance. Your room has been prepared, Adrian said, his tone casual, as if this arrangement were the most natural thing in the world. You'll find everything you need. Luna nodded once. And the marriage, she asked, tomorrow? He replied without pause. I don't believe in delays. Of course he didn't. Luna almost smiled. Good, she said. Adrian's gaze lingered on her for a moment longer than necessary. as if assessing whether she understood the weight of what she had just agreed to. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing down a corridor without looking back. Luna exhaled slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing just slightly now that she was alone. Tomorrow. Everything would be official tomorrow, which meant tonight was her last moment as someone unclaimed. Unbound by his name, his world, his rules. She should have felt fear, uncertainty, doubt, but she didn't, because compared to the life she had escaped, this was freedom. The next evening arrived faster than expected. The venue was nothing short of extravagant, a private event held at one of the most exclusive locations in the city, reserved entirely under Adrian's name. Influential figures filled the space, their voices low, their eyes sharp. Every interaction layered with unspoken intentions. This wasn't just a gathering, it was a stage, and tonight Luna would step onto it for the first time. She stood at the entrance, dressed in a gown that flowed like liquid silver, its design both elegant and commanding, every detail chosen to enhance rather than overshadow her presence. Her hair fell effortlessly over her shoulders, her makeup subtle but precise, highlighting the sharpness in her gaze rather than softening it. She didn't look like a victim. She didn't look like someone who had been discarded. She looked like someone who had risen. And when Adrian stepped beside her, dressed in black, his presence steady and overwhelming, the room shifted instantly. Conversations paused, eyes turned, attention locked. "Ready?" he asked quietly. His voice meant only for her. Luna didn't hesitate. Always, and then they stepped in. The effect was immediate. Whispers spread like wildfire, curiosity turning into speculation. Speculation into recognition. Adrian Vale rarely appeared at public events, and when he did, he was always alone. Until now. Who is she? Did he just bring a woman? That's impossible. Luna heard it all, every word, every doubt, but none of it touched her, because she wasn't here to be accepted. She was here to be seen. And then, just as she expected, it happened. "Sister," the voice cut through the noise like a blade. Luna didn't turn immediately. She didn't need to. She already knew. But when she finally did, there they were, her past, standing right in front of her. Myra's face had gone pale, her eyes wide with shock as she stared at Luna from head to toe, disbelief written all over her expression. Their mother stood beside her, equally stunned, her carefully maintained composure cracking under the weight of the impossible. And behind them, Daniel, his gaze locked onto Luna, his expression shifting from confusion to recognition to something darker, something possessive, something furious. "What is this?" Myra demanded, her voice trembling despite her attempt to remain composed. "Why are you here?" Luna looked at her calmly, her expression unreadable, then slowly she smiled. "That's a strange question," she said softly. "Shouldn't I be asking you the same thing?" Myra flinched. Their mother stepped forward immediately, her voice sharp. "Luna, stop this nonsense right now and come with us," she hissed. "You've embarrassed us enough." Luna didn't move, not even an inch. Instead, she turned her head slightly, just enough for Adrian to step forward beside her, his presence instantly shifting the balance of the entire situation. The moment their eyes landed on him, everything changed. Recognition, fear, calculation. "Mr. Vale," her mother stammered, her tone instantly softening, her posture straightening as if she had just realized exactly who she was dealing with. "We didn't realize." "Of course you didn't." Adrian cut her off smoothly, his voice calm but carrying enough authority to silence her instantly. His gaze flicked briefly toward Luna before returning to them. "Allow me to clarify." He reached out, his hand resting lightly against Luna's waist, not possessive, not forceful, but unmistakably deliberate. A statement, a claim. "This is my fiancé." Silence, absolute, crushing silence. Myra's eyes widened, her lips parting as if she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Daniel's expression darkened instantly, his hands clenching at his sides as he stared at Luna with something that bordered on disbelief. "That's impossible," he said, his voice low, dangerous. "She was supposed to marry me." Adrian interrupted, his gaze shifting to him now, cold and uninterested. "I don't recall making such an arrangement." Daniel froze, and in that moment, everything flipped. Luna felt it, the shift in power, the collapse of everything they thought they controlled. She stepped forward slightly, her gaze meeting theirs one by one, her voice calm, steady, but carrying a weight that hadn't existed before. "Things change," she said. Myra shook her head, panic creeping into her expression. No, this doesn't make sense. You can't just." "I can." Luna cut her off, her tone sharper, now colder. "And I did." Their mother tried to recover quickly, forcing a smile as she turned back to Adrian. "Mr. Vale, there must be some misunderstanding. Luna is still young. She doesn't understand." "I understand perfectly," Luna said, her voice slicing through the air before Adrian could respond. She took another step forward, her gaze locking onto her mother's, every word deliberate. "And just so we're clear," her lips curved into a faint smile, not warm, not kind, but undeniable. I'm not coming back. The words landed harder than any slap. Myra's face went completely white. Daniel's expression twisted with something dark and volatile. And for the first time, her mother had nothing to say. Luna held their gaze for one final moment before turning away, her hand slipping effortlessly into Adrian's as if it had always belonged there. And as the whispers around them grew louder, spreading faster, turning into something unstoppable, one truth became clear to everyone in that room. Luna Carter was no longer the girl they could control. She had stepped into a world far beyond their reach. And this time, she wasn't the one being sacrificed. She was the one holding the knife. The silence didn't last long. It never did in a room full of people who thrived on power scandal, in the subtle art of watching others fall apart. Within seconds, the whispers returned, louder this time, sharper, no longer questioning what they had seen but dissecting it, reshaping it into something far more dangerous. Luna could feel it ripple through the crowd like a current. The shift in perception, the recalibration of status. Moments ago, she had been an unknown variable. Now, she was a name attached to Adrian Vale, and that alone was enough to rewrite every assumption in the room. But Luna didn't slow down. She didn't linger, because she knew something they didn't. This was only the beginning. Adrian's hand remained lightly at her waist as they moved deeper into the venue, his presence acting as both shield and spotlight. No one dared to approach too casually. No one dared to speak out of line. But they watched. Of course they watched. You handled that well, Adrian said quietly, his voice calm, almost indifferent, as if what had just happened were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Luna let out a soft breath, her gaze scanning the room without settling on anyone in particular. They're not difficult to deal with, she replied. They're predictable. Adrian's eyes flicked toward her briefly, a trace of interest surfacing again. And what do you predict they'll do next? Luna's lips curved faintly. They won't leave, she said. Not yet, she paused, then added. They'll try to fix it, to control the narrative, to turn this back in their favor. Adrian hummed softly, as if he had expected nothing less. Then we'll let them try. Luna didn't respond immediately. Instead, her gaze shifted across the room until it landed exactly where she knew it would. Her family hadn't left. Just like she said, they had moved to the far side of the hall, huddled together, their expressions tense, their voices low but urgent. Myra kept glancing in Luna's direction, her eyes filled with something that looked dangerously close to panic. Daniel stood rigid, his jaw tight, his gaze dark and fixed on her, always on her. And her mother was already calculating. Luna could see it, the way her posture straightened, the way her expression smoothed out, the way her eyes sharpened as she prepared her next move. Yes, predictable. They're coming, Luna said softly. Adrian followed her line of sight, his expression unchanged. Good, he replied. I dislike unresolved situations. Luna almost smiled. Neither did she. It didn't take long. Her mother approached first, her steps measured, her expression carefully composed into something polite, controlled, respectable. Myra followed closely behind, her usual fragile act now laced with urgency, while Daniel trailed just a step behind them, his presence heavier, more volatile. Mr. Vale, her mother began, her voice smooth, as if nothing had happened moments ago. I believe we may have started off on the wrong foot. Adrian didn't respond immediately. He didn't need to. His silence alone forced her to continue. Luna is inexperienced, she went on, choosing her words carefully. She tends to act impulsively. I'm sure whatever arrangement you believe you have with her is simply a misunderstanding. Luna didn't move. She didn't speak. She simply watched. This was the part she had been waiting for. Adrian finally turned his head slightly, his gaze landing on her mother, not cold, not hostile, but completely uninterested. I don't deal in misunderstandings, he said calmly. I deal in decisions. Her mother's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. Myra stepped forward quickly, her voice soft, trembling in all the right ways. Mr. Vale, please don't misunderstand, she said, her eyes glistening as she glanced at Luna. My sister has been under a lot of stress lately. She doesn't mean what she says sometimes. Luna let out a quiet laugh. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it cut through Myra's words like a blade. That's funny, she said, finally stepping forward, because I don't remember asking you to speak for me. Myra froze completely. Luna tilted her head slightly, her gaze calm but sharp. Or did I miss that part? Myra's lips parted, but no words came out for once. Her carefully crafted act had nothing to stand on. Their mother stepped in again, her tone sharpening just slightly. Luna, this is not the place for childish behavior, she said under her breath. Whatever you're trying to prove, you've made your point. Now come home. Home. The word felt foreign, empty. Luna looked at her for a long moment before responding. You're still under the impression that I belong to you, she said quietly. That's your first mistake. Her mother's expression hardened instantly. And you're under the impression that this man will protect you from everything. She shot back. That's yours. The tension in the air thickened. Even the surrounding guests seemed to sense it now, their conversations lowering, their attention shifting subtly toward the confrontation. Luna didn't react to the provocation. Instead, she reached for something in her clutch. Her movements slow, deliberate. Then she pulled out a document, folded, familiar. Her mother's eyes narrowed slightly. What is that? Luna didn't answer immediately. Instead, she unfolded it carefully, her gaze dropping to the page for just a moment before lifting again. The contract you wanted me to sign, she said. Myra's breath caught. Daniel's eyes darkened instantly. You said it was for the family. Luna continued, her voice calm, steady, each word landing with precision. That it was the only way to save us. She paused. Then she smiled. So I read it. Silence. Her mother didn't speak. Couldn't speak. Luna took a small step forward, holding the document up just enough for them to see. Funny thing about contracts, she said. They tend to reveal the truth when you actually look at them. Myra shook her head quickly, panic creeping back into her expression. Stop your misunderstanding. No. Luna cut her off, her tone sharper now. I understand perfectly. She turned the page slightly, tapping a specific section with her finger. Clause 7, she said. Full transfer of personal assets upon marriage. Her mother's face went pale. Clause 9, Luna continued, her voice unwavering. No right to divorce without financial penalty payable to the husband. Daniel shifted slightly, his jaw tightening, and then Luna looked up. Her gaze moved from one face to another, lingering just long enough to let the weight of her words sink in. And my favorite, she said softly. Clause 12, she paused, just long enough to build tension. In the event of non-compliance, physical enforcement is permitted. The words dropped like a bomb. Myra stumbled back slightly, her hands trembling. That's not say it. Luna challenged, her voice suddenly colder. Say it's not what you agreed to. Silence. Her mother said nothing, because she couldn't, because it was true. Luna folded the document slowly, her movements controlled, precise. You didn't just sell me, she said. You signed me away. Daniel let out a low, humorless laugh, finally stepping forward. So what? He said, his voice dark, his eyes locked onto hers. You think standing next to him changes anything? He gestured toward Adrian, his expression twisting. You were mine. You still are. The room went still, completely still. And for a split second, just a split second, Luna felt the ghost of her past self flinch. But it didn't last, because she wasn't that girl anymore. She stepped forward, closing the distance between them, her gaze meeting his without fear, without hesitation. No, she said quietly, then, stronger. I was never yours. Daniel's expression snapped, anger flashing violently in his eyes. You are careful. Adrian's voice cut in smoothly, calm but carrying enough weight to stop him mid-step. Daniel froze slowly. He turned his head, meeting Adrian's gaze, and whatever he saw there was enough to make him hesitate. Luna didn't look away, not from Daniel, not from any of them, because this was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment everything began to fall apart. You wanted a deal, she said, her voice calm once more as she stepped back to Adrian's side. So here's mine. She lifted her chin slightly, her gaze locking onto her mother's. You don't get me, she said. You don't get my name. A pause. Then, and you don't get my silence. The meaning hit instantly. Her mother's eyes widened. What are you implying? She demanded. Luna smiled slowly, deliberately. I'm saying, she began, her voice dropping just enough to draw them in. Everything you tried to hide. She met her gaze, her expression turning ice cold. I'm going to make sure the whole world sees it. And just like that, the balance shattered. Not completely, not yet, but the cracks were there, spreading, inevitable. Myra's breathing quickened. Daniel's fists clenched, and for the first time, her mother looked afraid. Luna turned away before they could respond, her hand slipping back into Adrian's, as if the conversation had already ended. Because for her it had. You're escalating quickly, Adrian murmured as they walked away, his tone low, almost thoughtful. Luna didn't slow down. I don't have time to go slowly, she replied. Adrian's grip tightened slightly, not restrictive, but grounding, approving. Good, he said. Because neither do I. And as the whispers behind them grew louder, sharper, transforming into something uncontrollable, one thing became clear. Luna hadn't just refused to play their game anymore. She had rewritten the rules. And this time she was the one setting the board. The moment Luna turned her back on them, she knew there was no going back, not that she had ever intended to. Behind her, the whispers were no longer subtle. They had sharpened, multiplied, spreading through the room like a slow-burning fire that no one could quite contain. Names were being mentioned, deals were being questioned, and at the center of it all, her family, exactly where she wanted them. Luna didn't need to look to know what was happening. She could feel it in the shift of energy alone. The same people who once would have smiled politely at her parents were now watching them with curiosity and doubt. Doubt was the beginning of everything falling apart. "You've started something you can't pause," Adrian said quietly beside her, his voice calm measured, as if he were observing a controlled experiment rather than a social collapse in real time. Luna didn't slow her steps. "I don't intend to pause," she replied. Adrian glanced at her briefly, his expression unreadable. "Good," he said. "Because they won't either." Luna already knew that. Her family would not retreat, not now. Not when everything was on the line. They would fight, desperately, and that desperation would make them reckless, perfect. By the time the event ended, the damage had already begun. It wasn't visible, not yet. There were no headlines, no public scandals, but in rooms that mattered, conversations had shifted, calls would be made, backgrounds would be checked, and once people started looking, they would find things. Things her family had buried long ago. Things Luna was about to dig up herself. The car ride back was quieter than before, not tense, not uncertain, but filled with something heavier: anticipation. "You mentioned evidence," Adrian said after a while, his gaze fixed ahead. Luna leaned back slightly, her fingers tracing the edge of her phone as if grounding herself in something tangible. "I didn't just live that life blindly," she said. "I saw things, heard things. I just didn't understand their value at the time." Adrian's eyes flickered toward her. "And now," Luna's lips curved faintly, "now I know exactly what they're worth." That was enough for him. He didn't ask more. He didn't need to. Because if there was one thing Adrian Vale respected, it was results. Back at the estate, Luna didn't go to her room. Not immediately, instead. She walked straight to the study, a space she had only briefly seen before, but instinctively knew was where decisions were made. The lights turned on automatically as she entered, illuminating rows of shelves, a massive desk, and screens embedded seamlessly into the walls. This was his domain, his control center, and now hers to use. Adrian followed a moment later, leaning casually against the doorway as he watched her move through the space without hesitation. "You're very comfortable here," he observed. Luna didn't look at him. "I will be," she said simply. That earned the faintest hint of a smile. She placed her phone on the desk, her fingers moving quickly now, pulling up files, recordings, fragments of a past she had once tried to forget. But memory was a strange thing. What had once been pain had now become a weapon. "In my previous life," she began, her voice steady despite the weight of her words, "I wasn't allowed access to anything important. No finances, no contracts, no decisions." She paused, her jaw tightening slightly. "But they underestimated one thing." Adrian stepped further into the room, his attention fully on her now. "And that is," Luna finally looked up, her gaze sharp. "They talked," she said, "in front of me, around me, like I wasn't there." A beat of silence. "Then, people always reveal the truth when they think no one is listening," Adrian said. Luna nodded once. "Exactly." She tapped her screen, and a file appeared: audio, grainy, distorted, but clear enough. "This was recorded 2 weeks before the marriage," she said. "I didn't even remember it existed until now." She pressed play. The room filled with static for a brief moment, and then voices. Familiar voices. Her mother's, Myra's. "Once the contract is signed, it won't matter what happens to her." Her mother's voice said, cold, calculating in a way she had never allowed Luna to hear directly. "Daniel already agreed. As long as the assets transfer, he doesn't care." Myra's voice followed, softer, but laced with something darker. And after that, a pause, then a quiet laugh. "Then she's his problem." Silence filled the study as the recording ended. Luna didn't speak. She didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. Adrian didn't react immediately. He simply watched her, his expression unreadable, as if measuring not the content of the recording, but her reaction to it. "You've had this all along," he said finally. Luna shook her head slightly. "I had it," she corrected. "I just didn't realize what it meant." Her fingers curled slightly against the desk. "Back then, I thought maybe they didn't mean it like that." Her voice didn't break. It didn't waver, but there was something there. Something quiet, something buried. Adrian pushed off the doorway, stepping closer, and now Luna met his gaze. Her eyes clear, cold, certain. "Now I know they meant every word." A pause. Then she tapped the screen again. Another file. Documents this time, transfers, signatures, hidden clauses that matched exactly what she had exposed earlier that night. "This is just the beginning," she said. "Enough to create doubt. Enough to start rumors." She looked up, her expression sharpening, but not enough to destroy them. Adrian nodded slowly. "No." He agreed. "But it's enough to weaken them." Luna's lips curved faintly. That's the point. She wasn't rushing. Not anymore. This wasn't about one moment of revenge. This was about dismantling everything they had built piece by piece. Carefully, completely. "What's your next move?" Adrian asked. Luna didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked around the desk, stopping in front of one of the large screens. With a few precise movements, she pulled up a list: names, companies, Connections, her family's network, their lifeline. They rely on reputation, she said. On trust, her finger tapped lightly against the screen. So I take that away first. Adrian watched her for a moment, then asked, "And how do you plan to do that?" Luna turned her head slightly, her gaze meeting his, her expression calm but edged with something dangerous. "By telling the truth," she said, a beat. Then, at the right time, Adrian studied her in silence. And then he smiled, not out of amusement, not out of curiosity, but out of recognition. He had seen this before. Not the situation, not the people, but the mindset, the precision, the patience, the willingness to destroy something completely, without hesitation. "You're not just trying to win," he said quietly. Luna shook her head. "No," she replied. "I'm making sure they lose." The words settled into the room like a final decision. And for the first time since her rebirth, Luna felt it. Not anger, not pain, but control, real control, the kind she had never had before, the kind no one could take from her again. But as she turned back to the screen, preparing her next move, her phone buzzed softly against the desk. A message. Unknown number. Luna frowned slightly, picking it up. For a brief moment, she hesitated. Then she opened it, and everything changed. The message was short, only one line, but it was enough. "If you think you're the only one who remembers, you're wrong." Luna's fingers tightened around the phone instantly, her pulse spiking for the first time that night. Adrian noticed the shift immediately. "What is it?" he asked. Luna didn't answer right away. Her eyes remained locked on the screen, her expression unreadable, but something had changed. Something subtle, something dangerous. Slowly she lifted her gaze. "It seems," she said quietly, "we're not the only ones playing this game." The air in the room shifted instantly, heavier, sharper, and far more unpredictable than before. Because this was no longer just revenge. It was something else entirely. Something bigger. And for the first time, Luna wasn't the only one who had come back. Luna didn't sleep that night. Not because she couldn't, but because she refused to. Sleep was for people who felt safe. For people who believed tomorrow would come without consequence. She wasn't one of them. Not anymore. The message lingered in her mind long after the screen went dark, replaying itself over and over, each word sharpening into something far more dangerous than a simple threat. "You're not the only one who remembers." That meant one thing: someone else had lived that life. Someone else had seen everything she had seen, or worse. And if they remembered, then they weren't just a witness. They were a player by morning. The uncertainty had hardened into something else. Strategy. If there was another piece on the board, then she needed to force it into the open. And there was only one way to do that: pressure. Public. Undeniable pressure, the kind that forced hidden hands to reveal themselves. "You're planning something," Adrian said from across the table, his voice calm as he set down his cup, his eyes already locked onto hers as if he had been watching her long before she spoke. Luna didn't deny it. "I need them to react," she said. "All of them?" Adrian leaned back slightly, studying her with quiet interest. "And how do you plan to do that?" Luna slid a folder across the table toward him, documents, transcripts, fragments of truth carefully assembled into something cohesive. "Something dangerous. We make it public," she said. Adrian didn't open the folder immediately. "That will escalate everything," he said. Luna met his gaze without hesitation. "That's the point." A pause. Then he smiled faintly, the kind of smile that didn't come from amusement, but from recognition. "Then let's make sure it's done properly." The press conference was arranged within hours. Not announced, curated. Invitations sent only to those who mattered. Influential media, key investors, people whose opinions shaped reputations and destroyed them just as easily. By evening, the room was filled. Cameras lined the walls. Reporters murmuring quietly. Anticipation thick in the air. Something was happening. They didn't know what yet, but they could feel it. And at the center of it all, Luna stood behind the curtain, her reflection staring back at her from a mirrored panel. Her expression calm, composed, unshaken. This was it. Not the end, not yet. But the moment everything broke. "Last chance to stop," Adrian said quietly behind her. Luna didn't turn. "Do I look like I'm hesitating?" she asked. Adrian's reflection met hers in the mirror. "No," he said. "You look like someone about to burn everything down." Luna's lips curved slightly. "Good." And then the curtain opened. The room fell silent instantly. Every camera turned. Every eye locked onto her as she stepped forward, her heels echoing softly against the polished floor. Each step deliberate. Each movement controlled. No hesitation, no fear. Only purpose. Adrian followed just behind her, his presence alone enough to reinforce what this moment meant. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't speculation. This was real. Luna reached the podium, her gaze sweeping across the room, once slow, measured before settling forward. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice clear, steady, carrying effortlessly through the silence. "I won't waste your time." A brief pause. "Then today, I'm here to clarify a few misunderstandings." The first slide appeared on the screen behind her: documents, contracts, names, her name, Daniel's, her family's. A ripple moved through the room instantly. Cameras zoomed in. Reporters leaned forward. This, Luna continued, is the agreement my family arranged without my consent. Murmurs spread, louder now, sharper. She didn't stop. A contract that transferred not only financial assets but control. Another slide. Clauses highlighted, terms exposed. The exact sections she had revealed the night before, now displayed for everyone to see. No denying it now. No twisting it. The truth was there, in black and white. They called it a sacrifice. Luna said, a necessity. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't break. It didn't need to. I call it what it is, a beat. Then a transaction. The room erupted. Questions flew immediately. Voices overlapping. The energy shifting from curiosity to shock to something far more explosive. Luna stepped back slightly, allowing the noise to build just enough. And then she raised her hand. Silence fell again. Not completely, but enough. And that's not all, she said. Another signal. The screen changed again. This time audio. The same recording. Her mother's voice, Myra's, clear, undeniable. The room froze as the truth played out in real time. Every word landing heavier than the last. Once the contract is signed, it won't matter what happens to her. By the time it ended, there was no more doubt. Only impact, only consequence. Luna didn't speak immediately. She didn't need to. The damage was already done. But she wasn't finished, not yet, for years. She continued, her voice quieter now but sharper. I believed loyalty meant silence. Her gaze hardened slightly. I was wrong. Another pause. Then and today, I'm correcting that mistake. The doors at the back of the room opened abruptly. Loud, sudden. Every head turned. Luna didn't. She already knew. Her family had arrived. Right on time. Myra rushed in first. Her face pale. Her composure completely shattered as she looked from the screens to Luna to the crowd now watching them with undisguised judgment. Turn it off, she shouted. Her voice breaking. You don't know what you're doing. Their mother followed close behind. Her expression tight. Controlled, but the cracks were there now. Visible to anyone looking closely enough. Luna, she said sharply. And this right now. Luna finally turned slowly, deliberately. Her gaze met theirs, not with anger, not with pain, but with something far worse. Indifference. Why, she asked calmly. Because the truth is inconvenient. Myra shook her head desperately. You're destroying us. Luna tilted her head slightly. No. She corrected. I'm revealing you. Daniel stepped forward then, his presence cutting through the tension like a blade. His eyes locked onto Luna with something dark, something volatile. You think this changes anything? He said. His voice low, dangerous. You think standing there makes you untouchable? Luna held his gaze for a moment. Then she smiled. No, she said. But it makes you exposed. The room shifted again. Cameras turned toward him now. Toward all of them. The narrative had flipped completely. They weren't in control anymore. They were the story. And then, just as the chaos reached its peak, something else happened. Something unexpected, a voice. From the crowd. Impressive, the word cut through the noise, not loud. Not aggressive but precise. Intentional. Luna's eyes narrowed slightly as her gaze shifted toward the source. A man stepped forward slowly. His movements calm, deliberate, as if he had all the time in the world. He wasn't part of the press. That much was obvious. His presence didn't carry curiosity. It carried certainty. You've done well, he continued, his eyes locking onto Luna's with unsettling familiarity. Better than I expected. The room fell into a strange, uneasy silence. Luna didn't recognize him. Not at first, but something about the way he looked at her, like he knew more than he should, sent a sharp, cold warning through her instincts. Adrian stepped slightly closer behind her, his presence shifting instantly. Protective but controlled. And you are? He asked calmly. The man didn't look at him. Not immediately. His attention remained on Luna. Someone who remembers, he said. And just like that, everything clicked. Luna's pulse spiked, her fingers tightening slightly at her sides. There it was. Confirmation. Not a message. Not a theory, reality. She wasn't alone. The man finally smiled, not warmly, not kindly, but knowingly. You're not the only one who got a second chance, he said. The words settled into the room like a shockwave. And for the first time since stepping onto that stage, Luna felt something unexpected. Not fear, not doubt, but something far more dangerous. Uncertainty. Because this wasn't part of her plan. And if there was one thing Luna understood better than anyone, it was that the most dangerous threats were the ones you couldn't predict. The room didn't breathe, it held its breath. Every camera, every pair of eyes, every fragile thread of control hanging in the air seemed to freeze in place the moment those words landed. You're not the only one who got a second chance. Luna didn't move. Not immediately. But something inside her did, something sharp. Something instinctive. Something that had been honed by pain and reborn through purpose. She studied him now. Really studied him. her gaze cutting through the distance between them as if peeling back layers one by one, searching not for familiarity but for truth. Because if he truly remembered, then he wasn't just a variable, he was a mirror, and mirrors were dangerous. Then you already know how this ends, Luna said finally, her voice calm, controlled, cutting clean through the silence without needing to rise. The man's smile deepened slightly, not in amusement, but in acknowledgement. Do I? He replied, tilting his head just enough to suggest curiosity rather than challenge. Because last time you didn't make it this far. A ripple passed through the room, not understanding. Not yet, but sensing the shift. Something bigger was happening, something no one else could quite grasp. Luna's expression didn't change, but her mind moved fast, precise, reconstructing possibilities, aligning fragments of memory with the man now standing in front of her. He hadn't been visible before, not openly, but that didn't mean he hadn't existed. It meant he had stayed hidden, watching, waiting. You were there, Luna said quietly, not a question, a realization. The man's eyes flickered with something faintly approving. Closer than you think, he said. Adrian stepped forward then, just slightly, his presence grounding, his voice calm but edged with authority. You're interrupting a private matter, he said. If you have something to say it clearly. The man finally shifted his gaze to Adrian, assessing him briefly before returning his attention to Luna. You chose well, he said. Better than before. Luna didn't react to that. Instead, she took a single step forward, just one, but it shifted the entire dynamic. Because she wasn't retreating, she wasn't hesitating, she was advancing. You didn't come here to compliment me, she said. So let's stop pretending. The man's smile faded slightly, not entirely, but enough to reveal something beneath it. Something sharper. Fair enough, he said. I came to see if you were worth the trouble. A pause. Then and now I know you are. The room felt smaller, tighter. The kind of pressure that came right before something broke. Luna tilted her head slightly, her gaze unwavering. Then let me save you some time, she said. I'm not interested in sharing this game. A flicker of something passed through his expression. Not surprised, not quite, but close enough. That's the problem, he replied. You don't get to choose that, and there it was. The line drawn, not in words but in intent. Luna exhaled slowly, her fingers relaxing at her sides, her posture shifting, not visibly, not dramatically, but enough. Enough for Adrian to notice, enough for the man across from her to understand. This wasn't uncertainty, this was calculation. You're right, she said. I don't get to choose whether you exist. A beat. Then her lips curved slightly. But I do get to choose what happens next. Before he could respond, she turned completely, decisively back toward the audience, toward the cameras, toward the world that had been waiting for a conclusion that no longer fit within its expectations. We're done here, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the room, cutting through the tension like a blade. Everything that needed to be said has been said. The reporters hesitated, confused, uncertain, sensing that something had shifted but unable to define it. But Luna didn't give them time to recover. She stepped away from the podium, her movement smooth, controlled, as if the confrontation that had just occurred were nothing more than a footnote in a much larger story. Because to her it was. Adrian fell into step beside her instantly, his presence steady, his silence deliberate. He didn't ask questions, not here, not now, because he understood something most people didn't. Timing was everything, and whatever had just changed wasn't meant for the public. Not yet. The man didn't follow. He didn't stop them. He simply watched, his expression unreadable once more, as if the outcome he had come to observe had already been decided. And maybe in his mind it had. But Luna didn't look back, not once, because she didn't need to. She already knew. This wasn't over. It had just evolved. The ride back was silent at first, not tense, not heavy, but filled with something far more dangerous. Thought. Adrian broke it eventually. You didn't finish him, he said. Luna's gaze remained fixed on the city lights outside, her reflection staring back at her, steady, unshaken. No, she replied, because he's not the end. Adrian studied her for a moment. And what is? Luna turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting his. Control. She said simply, a pause. Then, and I already have it. That night, everything moved faster. The evidence she had released spread exactly as intended. Headlines followed, not exaggerated, not distorted, just undeniable. Questions turned into investigations. Partnerships dissolved quietly. Then not so quietly. Calls went unanswered. Invitations disappeared. And just like that, her family's world began to collapse. Not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, inevitably, like something that had been rotting from the inside for far too long. Luna didn't watch it happen. She didn't need to. She had already set it in motion. Instead, she stood on the balcony of the estate, the night air cool against her skin, the city stretching endlessly before her. For the first time since her rebirth, there was nothing immediate to do. No next move, no reaction to anticipate, just stillness. Adrian joined her quietly, stopping just close enough to be present, not close enough to intrude. "It's done," he said. Luna didn't answer right away, because the truth was it wasn't. Not completely. There was still one piece left, one variable she hadn't resolved, one player who had stepped onto the board uninvited. "No," she said finally. "It's finished," a subtle distinction, but an important one. Adrian didn't question it. He didn't need to, because he understood what she meant. The past was over. The debt had been paid. The people who had broken her no longer had the power to do so. And that was enough for now. A moment passed, then another. The silence between them wasn't empty. It wasn't awkward. It was steady. "Our contract," Adrian said eventually. Luna glanced at him. "What about it?" "It's no longer necessary," he said. Luna held his gaze for a moment, searching not for weakness, not for hesitation, but for intent, and she found it clear, uncomplicated, real. "No," she agreed. "It's not." Another pause. Then he reached into his pocket, pulling out something small, simple, a ring. Not extravagant, not designed to impress, but precise, intentional, like everything else about him. "Then let's replace it," he said. Luna's breath caught just slightly. Just for a moment, not because she was surprised, but because she understood what it meant. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't an arrangement. This was choice. "Adrian," she began. He didn't let her finish. "No contracts," he said. "No conditions." A step closer, just one, but enough. "Just a decision." Luna looked at the ring, then back at him, her mind quieter than it had been in a long time. Because for once, there was no calculation to make, no outcome to predict, just a question, and an answer she already knew. "You're asking me to trust you," she said. Adrian shook his head slightly. "No," he corrected. "I'm asking you to choose me." A beat of silence. Then Luna smiled. Not the cold, sharp smile she had worn like armor, not the calculated one she used to control a room, but something softer, something real. "That's more dangerous," she said. Adrian's lips curved faintly. "I know." She took the ring from his hand, her fingers brushing against his, her gaze never leaving his face. And then without hesitation, she put it on. "Then I choose you," she said. The words settled between them, not loud, not dramatic, but unshakable, final. For the first time, Luna wasn't choosing survival. She was choosing something else, something she had once believed she would never have again. The city lights flickered in the distance, the world continuing on as if nothing had changed. But everything had, because the girl who had died on that cold marble floor no longer existed. In her place stood someone stronger, someone sharper, someone who had faced the worst the world could offer and decided to take control instead. And somewhere, in the shadows, another player was still watching, still waiting, but this time Luna wasn't afraid, because she wasn't the same person he had known before. And next time she would be ready. She turned slightly, her hand slipping into Adrian's, her gaze steady as she looked out over the city that had once felt like a cage. Now it was something else entirely, something she could shape, something she could rule. Her lips curved into a faint, confident smile as one final thought settled clearly in her mind, sharp, certain, unbreakable. "This time I don't just survive, I win."